It's the 17th day of January 2016, and this is the Radical Agnostic, where ideology goes to die. Oh boy.
There's flying cows in the sky.
We got all kinds of stuff for you guys today. We got a new format coming at you from Tucson, by the way. Sonoran Desert, great American Southwest. My name's John. I'm your host. I got Mark, my co-host. We got the stowaway guest, Brian Richter.
Hi.
We got our other guest, Eddie West.
How y'all doing?
Got a special guest coming for you in a few minutes. We're going to call my friend Barnaby from high school, and we're going to talk. Guys, it's a sighting. It's a rare creature sighting, basically. This is one for the cryptozoologists. A Hillary supporter. A real one. I mean, you know, one that you can actually see, or at least hear in this case. He is voting for Hillary, and he's going to defend that position to us, and especially to me, being, as you know, an enthusiast of Bernard Sanders, presidential candidate. So that's coming up. Brian's almost spilling his drink on my stuff. No, it's empty.
Down my neck.
A few things to mention, guys. We got a whole new format now. We're only going to make you suffer through 1 hour at a time. So these episodes from now on are going to be 1 hour or less. Maybe we'll record 2 or 3 in a day sometimes and then leak them out to you over the week. But we're going to keep the time shorter because, frankly, people tell me it's too long. They just don't want to hear it. So
Ain't nobody got time for that.
that's right. I got bronchitis. That was part of it. Anyway. Sweet Brown. Nobody. Tough crowd. Is this thing on? Is this thing on?
I know.
Tip your waiters and waitresses.
Try
Now-
the veal.
So anyway, yeah, guys, new format, shorter episodes, more fun, you know, more bang for your buck, which is $0. Also, well, we're just going to try to keep the episodes more organized, to be honest. We're going to try to give you 2 topics, maybe 3 per show. And maybe we'll do, 2 half-hour topics, and then we'll end it with something like a great story, anger management, beefs, something like that. Something funny,
Commander in Beef. I like Commander in Beef.
Commander in Beef, where you put Mark in charge of the country so that his idealistic leanings are put to the test.
He has to legislate.
Except that's, it's pretty much completely against what my belief is. So
Right, you wouldn't want to do it, right?
I wouldn't want to do it, and I don't want anyone else to do it.
Exactly. That's
why you're the perfect guy for
You,
this job, really.
you should govern yourself. That's it.
No,
Because
Govern yourself
people are
accordingly.
not fucking perfect.
Nope, we want beef.
hey, that makes a lot of sense. But
What if
in
everybody
Commander
wants
in Beef, you're forced.
Yep.
That's why.
The people have chosen you, man.
So you are an anarchist.
We had a cabal.
I'm an anarchist more than anything else, but I'm not an anarchist.
Well, you mean you don't subscribe to any formal anarchist ideology, but you believe that governance by force is wrong.
These are nihilists,
Yeah.
Donnie.
So
They
you're
don't-
an anarchist.
Yeah.
So, all right,
These are nihilists, Donnie. They don't believe in
I don't know.
anything.
Can't libertarians go with that too? Once you throw in the
No,
by force,
'cause
because they got the non-aggression principle.
Sure, but on a much lesser scale. Libertarians are more likely to say we just want very little government. The government's only purpose is to protect property and something else they want the government to do, but almost nothing else. No building roads, no schools, no army, all that stuff. So, yeah, the anarchist just goes a step
No
further.
dictating where your water comes from.
Right. So, a few shout-outs, guys. Our buddy Sean P. Kyle, jiu-jitsu practitioner, co-host of the Big Jiu-Jitsu podcast with his other friend. And, guys, go check it out. Just Google it, look it up. If you're interested in martial arts, especially Brazilian jiu-jitsu, take a look. His last guest was Kurt Osiander, one of the greats, one of the badasses, and one of the most colorful characters in jiu-jitsu. Right, Brian? That was his last guest. Did you?
Oh, yeah. Super funny guy. I haven't listened to it yet, but
So that's
Osiander's awesome.
Yeah, I'm impressed that they can get these folks on. So
He's funny as shit, and his tech is legit.
Yep. And my buddy Big Bo, awesome, my partner on the Radio Dogs Network, he has a podcast show. It's a radio show. It's music. It's called New Music Sound Circus, and he throws like 10 new songs at you each week from different genres, mostly in the rock sort of, I don't know, alternative. I don't know what they call it. I don't know the names. But it's good stuff, guys. Some hip-hop in there, too, R&B, some different things. So check it out, New Music Sound Circus. Just look it up on Facebook. You'll find it. So here we go, guys. Firing into our newly formatted, newly organized, awesome show. Here, what we're going to do now, we're going to make a phone call. We're going to call my buddy Barnaby. Now, I know Barn from high school, but we'll explain it as it goes. So, Eddie, you get that mic up to the speaker.
Oh, yes. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
Oh, hello.
Barnaby.
Hey.
Thank you, sir, for joining us on the Radical Agnostic, my friend.
Woo! Glad to be here.
Awesome, dude. And where are you right now? Are you in Seattle?
No. I'm in Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. This guy, guys, just so you know, Barnaby, I met in high school in upstate New York. Now he's one of these Silicon Valley young geniuses that drives around in Teslas, and they houses made of vegan materials and stuff, right? Is that accurate, Barnaby?
Locally grown, eco-sustainable,
Yes,
hippie-friendly,
exactly.
fair trade.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So you're in California then. That's where Silicon Valley is, right?
So I'm in San Jose.
Oh, okay. So, dude, like you and I weren't friends in high school. Not close anyway. So, we went to a Christian Brothers Academy in upstate New York. It's an all boys Catholic military academy, and I
Did you guys date?
more or less. I mean, that's not what we called it, but yeah. So
It's called wrestling.
We weren't really
Greco-Roman wrestling.
We weren't really friends, which I now regret, and which also is not surprising because I didn't have any. So, but I was curious, and I thought I'd ask you on the air just for giggles. Do you have any memories of me from high school? And if so, what?
Absolutely. So the memories happened in French class, oddly enough.
Mrs. White. Mrs. White.
Yes. Yep. Which, she didn't get enough credit. She was, like, a really nice person.
She was very, very nice.
Very nice, yeah. And I didn't realize how much it inspired me until afterward. I minored in French. It's kind of a weird setup. I could for science and then a minor in French. I don't know. So all of my memories of you are from that really awesome French class that we had. I remember you had your hair sort of longer. It was middle.
Oh yeah.
It was like.
Hold on a second. Are you on speaker right now or?
No.
Okay. Just try to I don't know. Just try to enunciate more and get close to the mic. But we heard that you were saying that it was in Mrs. White's French class, which, by the way, my memory of that was that she was too nice and that we tortured her, and it was like nothing got done ever because we were so horrible. And you were saying I had like that hair that was parted in the middle, which is exactly right. It was like,
yep.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, it was this '90s hairstyle, right?
Yeah.
That you had. So years later, I went on this project to reconnect with people from, friends from my youth, and I found you on Facebook, and you had this buzz.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
Who is this dude with the short hair? That's not John Berger, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also about 140 pounds back then at 6'4", so I've gained a little weight, thank Jesus.
Yeah, you do look a bit more. I think it's all that karate.
Stop.
The
karate.
Stop.
The karate. It's jujitsu, but that's totally fine.
I won't hang up on you unless you say that again.
I'm sorry, I don't know the distinctions between what is considered karate, etc. I have lots of great memories too. Like I remember, so we were in the religion thing. I remember you this book once, a book about creation
Creation.
and creationism,
Yep.
and it had all these theories how the main scientific narrative was bogus. And you were in like 9th or 10th grade, so it's normal. Everybody kind of tries out ideas at this point.
Yep.
And you were trying out the yeah. But
Did I talk
young
to
people.
you? Did I talk to you about it?
Yeah, you did. We talked about it at length, right?
Yeah.
Where I was like, "Oh, this creation stuff is fluff, right? Like, look, there's real hard science, right?" And you're like, "No, it's all a lie. Like you're lying to us."
Oh, so if you guys didn't hear that, what he's talking about is, as I've mentioned on the show several times, I was a creationist for 2 or 3 years in high school, and getting into all the alternative, if you will, theories on, explaining different things like carbon dating or the dinosaurs, things like that. And creationists have all these elaborate explanations for that stuff. And I was trying that crap out on you. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I'm glad you remember that, because it's just, yeah. And I was also, obviously, I was extremely religious, and not in the Catholic way prescribed by the school, but in the fundamentalist born again way, which made me think I was better than everyone. But I did go to mass daily, so we had a half-hour lunch period. I spent the first 15 minutes of that in the daily mass.
What branch was the school you were at?
Catholic.
Well, yeah, okay.
Roman Catholic.
But even Catholics have branches. Was it Franciscan? Was it
No?
Jesuit?
It was the Christian. Barnaby, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Christian Brothers are a monastic order, and so Christian Brothers Academy, they were, if you will, monks. We call them brothers, and they're like a step below priests. And they wear the vestments, and they live together in a house, and they have a vow of chastity and
What's
stuff.
the one? Brother Penis?
Brother Penis. Remember Brother Penis, Barnaby?
Yeah, I more remember stories about him than actually remembering him.
Okay.
But, no, the order of monks specifically was the Lasallian Brothers.
That's
Okay, because there's a couple that have Christian brothers in their name, right? Barnaby? I think there are.
Yeah, there are lots of different orders.
But that order specifically, I think,
that
is
are Christian Brothers.
I think that order is the largest. They do the most of the ones that I know of, which have Christian brothers in their names. They are the largest. They do the most school stuff.
Yeah,
like Jesuits do colleges and stuff. But
them and Jesuits, yeah, those are the two orders that are really dedicated to religion.
right. I should have known that. But yeah, the LaSalle, that French guy LaSalle has all this history in upstate New York or in the Northeast, right? And that's how that order got started, like in the 1700s, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we would, every morning, like when normal people would do the Pledge of Allegiance, the teacher would say, St. John Baptist de LaSalle, pray for us. And everyone would go, forever. And then No, they would go, St. John Baptist de LaSalle, and we would say, pray for us. And then they would go, live Jesus in our hearts, and we would go, forever. Yeah. And then we would do military inspection of our uniforms. How fucked up is that? What was going on in there? I loved the military part, man. I dug it. Were you an officer, Barnaby?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
I think I underappreciated the religious part of it when I was there. I think it did instill a lot of kind of ways of thinking in me that are serving me really well right now later in life.
In terms of actual religious belief, or the sort of, like you said, more general ways of thinking, ritual concepts?
In many ways. So a lot of theology is kind of philosophy, right? So that was my first really to applying logic to daily life, and into the sort of metaphysical questions of why are we here and what is our purpose.
That's a good point.
I don't think that's not something that's noticeably present in people who didn't have that upbringing. And this is a controversial thing to say, but I don't think it's present in my Protestant friends either. They don't have that kind of culture of philosophical theology, like logic-based. that I feel I grew up with at CBA.
Yeah. Eddie has a question for you. Make sure you speak loud because you're talking to him on the. Yeah.
Barnaby, now, and you can feel free not to answer this if you don't want to, but how do you still subscribe to Catholicism or
Yeah,
okay, I'm just curious.
absolutely.
Do you attend Mass every Sunday? How deep are you?
Not every Sunday.
Okay.
Probably once a month. And I take my son. He has friends there, and they play around. It's really cute.
Did they do confirmation at you guys at the school? Because you said it was a high school, right? When did you guys do confirmation?
The high school doesn't organize confirmation. The church you belong to, the specific parish. So I lived an hour away from my high school. So I got confirmed in town at St. Edward's. And I don't know about you, Barnaby, but you probably got it too, right?
So what are you guys' confirmation names? I want to know.
Oh, that's an awesome question. You get to pick a name when you're confirmed, sort of like the Pope gets to pick a new name. So, Barnaby, you go first. What did you pick?
So I was born actually as Barnabas.
Oh, okay.
So the Anglicization of that is Barnaby.
Right.
So
just
I
went-
just basically
Saint,
changed to the English version of my name.
because it has to be a saint, right?
It should be, yes.
Yeah. I picked Sirach, which is one of the
Sirach?
which is one of the
The
apocryphal
saint
books.
of vodka.
This is one of the apocryphal books of the Old Testament. So me and my friend Ryan intentionally picked obscure and slightly satanic sounding confirmation names. He picked Malachi, and I picked Sirach. So that was hilarious. I'm so proud. So happy you asked that question.
I was confirmed myself.
I don't think it took.
It didn't take at the time.
Yeah.
I just went through the process. Titus.
That's a good one. Barnaby, yours is a little boring, I gotta say, but that's all right.
I'm sorry to disappoint.
That's okay.
Mark, were you ever confirmed?
Loud.
Were you ever confirmed, Mark?
I'm not gonna say because I don't want.
You have a secret?
Mark's confirmation name is Mary.
No. When I was confirmed, we didn't get to pick a name. I guess maybe I was confirmed because I thought I was Napoleon, but
I don't understand.
confirmed insane.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, because he didn't grow up Catholic, dude. He grew up like Baptist or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, Barnaby, by the way, have you ever listened to the show?
Just fragments.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry to admit.
All right.
It's not that good.
A little
No, I'm just
disappointed.
kidding.
little let down.
It's not for lack of wanting to.
Okay.
It sounds really awesome.
Well, you're a
It's,
dad. You got
Yes.
That's why you don't know what you did.
and you got some awesome job probably where you make tons of money, right?
Yes, tons of money and takes tons of time.
Yep. And effort. Well, the principal reason for this discussion, of course, is the current election, the current primaries, the Democratic primaries. So we've probably all spent enough time, talking about the Republicans. Speaking of them, though, I do want to say, and I don't think Hillary Clinton is the devil or some horrible, horrible candidate or anything like that. But I was thinking about it, and I do think that rather than voting for Bernie Sanders, in other words, my second pick in this election, well, I guess it might be O'Malley, but really my point is I would vote for Rand Paul before I would vote for Hillary. Because he's the only other candidate dedicated to A, not going to war, and B, getting money sort of out of politics more, and his libertarian approach would allow the states to legalize marijuana at their own, by themselves, which I think is a fair thing. Let states decide on that question. What do you think of that? So I just wanted to mention that.
Just me.
And
Only
Mark-
problem with that is Rand Paul dropped out.
When?
He wasn't on the last debate.
Oh, well, he has not suspended his campaign, but you're right that he voluntarily did not.
They were gonna send him to the kids' table, weren't they?
Yeah, he was at the kids' table, and he said, "No, I'm not going to the kids' table. We're not running an undercard campaign." Was his little slogan there?
So, if I can can cut in.
Please.
Your reasons A and B are excellent. I would add C, his stance on privacy in technology. That's what I really like about Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Everyone else has this really messed up view about encryption and how we need to break encryption and not allow people to have private conversations over the internet.
The back door into the...
scary. I mean, if you have a government that has a perfect microphone into everything that we say, that records every phone call that we have, that stores every Facebook chat that we've ever made, reads every email that we've ever sent, and uses it to create kind of profile on us, that's kind of scary.
And it's
the other thing is companies...
It's unconstitutional too, right?
It is, yeah, because it's a general warrant, which is one of the lists of things that we fought a revolution over,
Right.
because the British used general warrants, which would just kind of collect indiscriminately information about everybody, regardless of if they were accused.
Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is companies do this stuff, right? I mean, I work on big data, so I see firsthand how this works.
Data collection.
Data collection, yeah. We can take your emails and create psychological profiles about you in order to better sell you things.
Yep.
So you may have noticed that ads have gotten more relevant to you lately. That's part of the work we've been doing. They're
Yep.
also getting more convincing to you. That's the other part of the work that we're doing.
Say again.
Is we're making sure they're not just more relevant, they're also more convincing, right? They're more micro-targeted at your psychology, at your personal fears, hopes, weaknesses, strengths, etc., in order to sell you something that maybe you don't want. That can change the way you think.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wrote a paper about that yesterday, actually, about how they marketing researchers collect psychometric data based on values, lifestyle, and attitudes. It's called the VALS methodology. And yeah, it collects stuff about what your life values are, your attitude, the way you live, and they run the numbers there into an algorithm, and then they can direct targeted advertising at you in that way. All right, that's awesome, man. Thanks for bringing that up. And you're right, Rand Paul is totally against that nonsense.
Well, it's not that he's against that nonsense. It's that if you criminalize encryption, right, and you say, well, nobody can hide their conversations, then that means everyone has to be exposed to these methods, right? No one can say, okay, I want to opt out of being profiled by giant corporations who want to advertise to me,
right?
Who want to use my psychology to, unfairly twist my mind into buying things I otherwise wouldn't buy, right?
Yeah.
You can't opt out of that if you can't encrypt your communications and hide the communications from the companies, like
right?
From Google and Facebook, etc.
Now, what we do, what is available to consumers is stuff like ad block for Chrome, and that's very effective. I love that thing so much. There's an ad block for YouTube, an ad block for the internet, and then another ad block plus. And my Facebook page, the whole left or right side of it is just white. And it used to be flashing, blinking things about jiu-jitsu apparel and boobs, and now it's not. So I'm very happy about that.
But do remember that when you talk about things like ad blocker, you're not talking about the data still being collected.
Right.
It would present that ad to you if it could. You're blocking the end result, but not the process.
Very, very true. They're still collecting data on me, so
that's why I like VPNs personally.
Yeah.
That's why I like creating lots of accounts and lots of emails.
It's just confusing.
And lots of different places,
you can
libraries,
still be
and wherever.
But Google still knows who you are.
Not if I'm not signed into Google.
Yeah, and Facebook knows who you are. Every web page has like a little Facebook tracker on it. There are browser plugins for that. But really, talking about the browser misses the point. Right now, I don't know if you saw CES, just a week or two ago.
The convention.
It's all about the convention, the Computer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Which is one of the biggest shows. I mean, this is a big deal.
Huge deal. New technology is revealed.
This is the Comic-Con of technology.
Yeah.
Convention too.
Yes.
Go ahead, man.
Mostly porn.
So I don't know if you guys saw CES, but it's all about the Internet of Things, right? Like a smart refrigerator, a car that you can have a conversation with. Pretty soon it's like thermostat that you can have conversations with. So imagine, the next generation of ads where your refrigerator tries to gamify you and say, oh, I see you bought this kind of peanut butter, not that kind of peanut butter, right? And then it will adjust accordingly, either play ads for you or, when you have conversations with all of your Internet of Things devices, it will tell you, hey, you should have bought the other kind of peanut butter.
Yeah.
And it will use your psychology against you.
I mean, this
to tell that to you.
is the biggest thing since television, right? Because when TV came out, those first few years, and then it went off during World War II, Britain sort of invented TV. Germany had some. We might have had a channel or something. And then it all stopped during World War II. It was like no more TV, just like you couldn't buy a new Ford car in 1942. Like they were making tanks. You just had to have your old car. And so TV went away, and then it came back with a vengeance in 1945, and advertisers looked at this thing and they're like, wait a minute. They're like, we can literally get inside the houses of people now to advertise to them. Before, that door of someone's house kept advertisers out. You could knock on it, but they didn't have to talk to you. Now they're like, we're in the house. And that was just, trillions of dollars have been made in that way ever since. And the internet now its addictive properties, just like TV, mean that these ads are now more pervasive than ever, and now tailored to your personal psychometric data.
Yep.
Crazy crap, man. Well, thanks for participating in that in your career and pushing us along the path to Armageddon.
I am making the future a worse place. Yeah.
So that's an extremely important issue to you. What is Hillary Clinton's record and policy on that extremely important issue?
On that particular issue, she is totally wrong. She unfortunately has the wrong stance.
Okay, so
Barnaby, this is Eddie again, and if you can, before we start getting into specific policies that John wants you to not like Hillary for, why don't you explain why you like Hillary? Like, give us your short version of why you like Hillary.
The short version. I don't know if there is a short version.
Well, medium version is fine.
Medium, okay. I like
there
her
is
for a
no
reason
small,
that
medium
nobody
is small.
else will.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, I'll begin small. So I look at the world kind of differently. So when I look at politicians, I kind of assume, okay, they're all just a persona that's put together in a marketing laboratory.
Right.
And you're not voting for an actual person. You're voting for something that's created by a media machine. So when you say you support, I don't know, Sanders or O'Malley or Clinton or Trump, you're not really supporting the person. You're supporting this thing that was created artificially.
You're supporting the brand.
And it's going to lie to you. It's going to, et cetera. Right?
It's like supporting Coke over Pepsi, right?
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of like, what's the difference, right? So when I compare politicians, I compare it in that light.
Right. So now.
So
okay, go ahead.
So
go ahead.
In that light, so like I said, it's medium light.
Yeah.
So when I look at Hillary in that light, I see like the best. I don't know, the best marketing campaign for a politician I've ever seen ever put together. If it were a sport, she would be like the Pele, the Babe Ruth, the whatever of politics as a sport, right? She is like the most polished candidate ever. She has like the most impressive resume. It was already pretty impressive 8 years ago against Obama. In the meantime, she just made it even better, et cetera, et cetera. I'm in awe of how perfect they were able to make the sort of Hillary thing.
So, what about?
And yet somehow in all the polls she's losing to Sanders.
Well,
That's not what he said.
yeah. I mean, we can get to that in a second. That's kind of the good stuff. But
So is the short-ish, the medium-length version of why you like Hillary just her polish?
well, he is Polish.
Not just.
Hey, so am I.
The polish has a lot to do with it, right? When you look at who champions the things that you believe in, right? You want to have a champion who is, who wields the biggest, fieriest sword, right? You want someone who will defend the things that you believe in.
Now you're getting back into Catholicism with the
strength.
fiery sword.
Gabriel.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
maybe that was the wrong analogy, but you want a champion who's got the strength in the field, and polish is the strength of the political field, right? So she is on a very large.
But wait a minute,
a speaking platform with a big megaphone. For things like gay rights, for things like the environment, for things like equal pay for equal work for women, et cetera, et cetera.
I gotta jump in on you there because so polish, she has it for sure. Now a lot of voters are turned off by excessive polish. It's one of the reasons Martin O'Malley doesn't do well. My mom texted me during the first Democratic debate and she started calling him Mr. Hollywood, like he was just too good, too polished. Okay, so that's point one. Point two, isn't a campaign like Trump's, say, let's forget Bernie Sanders for now, isn't that campaign, I mean, you wouldn't call it polished. It's successful in another way. So aren't there other ways for candidates to succeed in to gain votes other than this polish that you admire Hillary for?
Yes, there is. And Trump is the perfect example of that, right? He is very powerful in the media, right? And he's advocating values that, hopefully all of us here on this podcast disagree with tremendously. Keeping Muslims out of the country,
deporting 10
everything
million.
he says. Let's just go with everything he says.
Yeah. Deporting 10 million people by force and
or anti-vaxxer BS or things like that, right? So he's got a tremendously powerful megaphone because of his media savvy, because of the way that he can dominate.
So doesn't that make
dominate the airwaves?
Your second favorite candidate?
I definitely respect him a lot. I really hope he doesn't win.
He's not going to
win. Yeah, I mean the whole.
So Barnaby, the reaction
doesn't want him.
The reaction most people are going to have to this, and I will let you go, Eddie. I'm sorry, but is that of course everyone agrees politics is what you said it was to a large degree. At least it's a advertising race. It's you're presenting a product or a package, but. A lot of people, tens of millions of Americans, hate that. They think it's disgusting. So when they get a candidate who deliberately almost does not pay lip service to that whole polish and presentation thing, let's say an old scruffy looking Jew from Vermont, hypothetically. If this, the people now, is it your contention that he's acting in just to the exact same degree that Hillary is, he's just playing a different character?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's interesting, though, because the argument against that would be the voting record. So as Hillary has had all these different elections, different phases in her life, her voting record has swung wildly back and forth from conservative to liberal to moderate policies. And especially, you mentioned gay rights. I think it was 2 years ago or 3 maybe now, she was against gay marriage, as you know, and she's still against marijuana legalization. I can name a few other policies. The TPP, she was a huge supporter of it when she was Secretary of State, and now she's against it, of course, going left for Bernie. Now, you would say, fine, yeah, she's flip-flopping. She's she's going left because Bernie's forcing her left. But I'm looking at Sanders and saying he's had the same policies from the start. So how can you contend that his is an advertising campaign to the same degree that hers is? He seems to have consistency, whereas she acts like the advertising lady.
Right. That's what the marketing teams at the Sanders camp want you to believe.
Well, the voting record demonstrates
it. Take the voting record talking point at the same grain of salt level that you would take anything that any other politician would say, right? Mm-hmm. So let's look at just one issue, for example, guns, right? This is something that we're watching right now. Bernie Sanders is flip-flopping on, right? And it's very visible because now he's sort of in the spotlight because he's actually competitive with Hillary. So now people are taking this more scrupulous look. They're putting more scrutiny on what he did and what he said.
So
and they're looking at these claims from his marketing department, and they're saying, "Oh, look, he's flip-flopping on this, he's flip-flopping on that." So he's not actually consistent, even though that's
he had a D rating. He had a D rating from the NRA before all this.
D- lifetime rating from the NRA. Barnaby's specifically talking about when Bernie was senator of Vermont, he voted against a law that would hold gun manufacturers liable for crimes used with them. Some would consider this a kind of a minor piece of legislation. And Barnaby's saying now that there's a national bill to do the same thing, now Bernie's saying, because Hillary's attacked him on this over several debates, now Bernie's saying, okay, I'm for holding gun manufacturers liable for the crimes committed with those guns, just like we do with automobile manufacturers and all these other toys and everything like that. So,
do we hold automobile manufacturers accountable when somebody runs somebody down with a car? Ford has to pay out?
Well, hold on.
I think
Hold on.
bullshit. That's not
Hold
true.
on.
No, it's not.
There's whenever this subject comes up, there's a problem because
it's not true. That's the
no,
problem.
Brian,
hold on.
It's partly true.
There is a aspect, and I actually had to write an essay about this last semester when I was in school. Well, I didn't have to. I chose to. About advertising, and it is true. Like if a gun explodes in your hand, you should be able to sue a gun manufacturer. The gun exploded in your hand. If a teddy bear explodes in your child's hands, you would likewise be able to sue the toy manufacturer,
right? Because
a toy should not explode, a gun should not explode. The trouble with these suing gun manufacturers thing is that there's also a push for suing them like, crazy guy bought your product and used it to kill people, therefore I should be able to sue. That is a grayer and I would argue negative area, and I always want to know more about what this law is talking about. I know there's a lot of knee-jerk laws preventing suing gun manufacturers for liability. I don't personally know enough about the laws to know whether if I buy a gun and it explodes in my hand, I should be able to sue. If I can't, that's a problem.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about if you buy a gun, then you kill you hold up a liquor store.
Then that's not the same thing as a car.
So Barnaby, can you defend that law?
So I don't know enough about the details myself, other than the whole fact that his the Bernie marketing thing is falling apart on flip-flopping on this. But I do have to say, as someone who works in a technical field, if we produced a product that could have certain feature that would introduce safety. For example, in the case of guns, like something where a fingerprint sensor, or a dongle, where only a person who's wearing a certain bracelet can fire a gun.
Right.
If I could offer these kind of safety features and I didn't, I would be liable for lawsuits for failing to provide safety features to my users. Right. And that would be true in any industry. Right. If you created a car that didn't have brakes, you could be sued by your users. Right.
Right.
But guns
every
do
other
have
industry
safeties.
has this. So why would Bernie have this thing where he's like, oh well, we're going to put these gun manufacturers in a special class where they're different?
But Brian's saying guns already do have safety features. Well, a lot of them anyway. They have safeties on them. So,
but the issue I think, and Barnaby, correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't want to misrepresent you, but the issue is gun manufacturers are treated special under a lot of laws. Right now, I can sue a car manufacturer because the brakes don't work well enough or something. But you can't do the same for a gun manufacturer because they've carved out an exception in the law. So you can say, well, guns have safeties, and that's true. But you can also say, well, cars have brakes, and that's also true. But if the brakes are a shitty version of brakes, or if you want to make the legal argument that they could have made a better brake, you can sue a car manufacturer. But right now, under the law, and I don't know enough about the laws, but I believe it is the case under many laws that you can't do the same kind of lawsuit against gun manufacturers.
Okay, so Barnaby, you
Sounds about right.
So you've got this small example of one flip flop from Bernie that Hillary's taken full advantage of, and I have to admit it's legitimate. He's flip flopped on it. His explanation, of course, is that a gun law in rural Vermont, where there's 500,000 people, is a little bit different than one on the federal level. But I think he is being pulled politically to the left on gun control, and I don't really like it. So I'll grant you that.
Let me just interject something. Mm-hmm. It's true that
he's pulled to the left, just like every politician.
Right. Well, and it's true that he's flip-flopping possibly on this in his statements, but until he actually votes on it, and this is any politician, where does their power actually come from? Does it come from making speeches? Does it come from making statements and issuing, press releases and whatnot? No, it doesn't. It comes from voting. It comes from voting and creating laws. That's it. That's the only power politicians have. So until he actually votes on something and changes his mind then and votes against his record, which that's the difference between a record of voting and just flip-flop. Everyone flip-flops. Everyone gets a night, someone says something and you go, oh, you think about it, go, oh, well, maybe that's right.
You can change your mind.
And you think about it, and then you use your logical thought process to determine what you actually, your idea is and what your result is.
That's a good
point. But until you vote on it, then it's not the same as Hillary's, which her voting record is completely all over the place. And her voting record changes depending, not just what she's blah, 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 blahing.
Go ahead, Barnaby.
So I see your point, right? That if you want to talk just about people's records, not about what they say, and if you want to base your vote just on record, you would be in the minority of Americans who
we're okay with that.
Yeah, we're all okay if we're basing it on fact compared to what you're saying. Yeah, I'm cool with it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's put this in perspective. Hillary and Bernie, in the time that they were together in the Senate, voted the same on 93%. Their voting record is 93% the same. So when we digest the differences between them, we're talking about a sliver. The 7% sliver of difference between the two of them.
Barnaby, that's disingenuous because that 7% could all be the most crucial votes in American history, and the others could be relating to funding school bus tire repair. I mean, you know that's not exactly an argument. I mean, the Iraq War or the what was the big economic, the bailout, something that he voted 99-1 on? I wish I could remember.
The Wall Street bailout.
Was it that? So these are big, important things, and they're things that this is what confuses me. They're things that are important to you, too. But when you view this as a big marketing campaign and that Bernie is just as much marketing as Hillary, I already gave my case against that, and you gave your case for it. So we could move on. Thank you for those responses. Now, there's a writer in a recent article who wrote, the case for Hillary boils down to this. She has experience, she's a woman, and it's her turn. Even ardent supporters seem to have a hard time making a substantive political argument in her favor, unquote. Now, it seems to me like you didn't say any of the things he just said, but
no.
you did not make a political...
I'm very different.
But yeah. But you did not make a political argument for her. So you did do what he was saying in that sense, right? Like you're saying, she's a rock star. She looks good. Her team is a crack team. They know how to win. They know how to bend the rules, maybe, and people listening. I mean, on one hand, what you're saying is very savvy and smart and sort of like tuned into how this shit works. On the other hand, it's horrifically cynical. And it means you've lost any faith that your vote has any effect on policy. Well,
and let me just put something out there, too. And this is just me asking you a question, Barnaby. This is Mark. Like John said, if your idea is that she is the most polished and then therefore the most electable, I can completely understand that and where you're coming from and that thought. But my problem is, if in polling and all this stuff that's happening, and this is amongst Democratic voters, not just people who are going to vote in the primary. If Sanders is leading Clinton and then therefore actually more electable, why do you not see that and then go, oh, well, I understand that she's more polished and she's more in the general terms of the way we've thought about politics, more electable. But when the rubber hits the road, reality, if he's more electable because he's getting the votes, I don't understand why you wouldn't swap and go, well, but he's actually more electable.
In other words, Barnaby, how do you respond to this week's incredible polling change where Bernie now leads in New Hampshire, statistically tied in Iowa. Nationally, he got within 9 points. Today, a Wall Street Journal poll came out that had him 25 points behind, so that dragged him down. But his aggregated, if you count up all the polls, he's still within 10 points, 12 points of her. How do you respond? Isn't his marketing campaign now working, and shouldn't you tip your hat to that and switch sides like tens of millions of Hillary supporters have? Go ahead.
So there's a lot of questions baked in the last couple of minutes there. I'll try to get to all of them. So someone said, she's a rock star. Is that why I'm voting for her? Well, yes, but she's a rock star who plays the music that I like.
Okay.
Right? Trump is a rock star, but he plays music that I really, really don't like.
Okay. Good.
Right?
Yeah.
I hear that crap and I want to turn it off. Right. So yes, there's the same kind of thing with Bernie, right? If,
Barnaby?
let's say, he does become a rock star. Sorry, I'm going to finish the thought.
No.
If Bernie is actually a rock star as well, right? And if, let's say, he surpasses Hillary in the polls, will I switch to him? No, he's also not playing music that I like.
Now,
I like the very moderate position of Hillary, and it's a democratic position, right? That says we treat people fairly, but, within a sort of systemic thing. A good example of this was in the debates where they were talking about education, and Bernie said, we should just give everybody free education. And Hillary stood her ground on the very democratic position of, yes, we should help people who can't afford education to get it, but we shouldn't be giving free education to, like, Donald Trump's kids, for example. Right? And that's an example of
but
the
here's
kind of differences
the one
that
argument
I like Hillary for better than Sanders.
Yeah, that does make sense. The thing about that is that rich people are going to send their kids to private colleges anyway, and the education funding Bernie's talking about doesn't fund those institutions. He gives you money for state colleges, local, community. So there's a hole in that argument.
Barnaby, hold up before you
hole,
do the school
it's
thing.
My argument.
Okay.
But before we
it's one that I like.
Eddie wants to ask you something.
Because just to talk about the polish for a minute, because Mark was asking you, well, somebody else is doing better, so the polish isn't as effective, so therefore shouldn't you switch allegiances? I feel like your position was, and to a certain extent I actually empathize and agree with it, that there's a difference between respecting just polish in its own right and respecting polish for its effects. I don't feel like you're saying I like Hillary because her polish is effective. I think one of your several reasons is you like that she is polished. Period. The end. Regardless of whether a more populist, a less polished. It's sort of like somebody coming to a job interview in a suit versus somebody coming to a job interview, just wearing a button-down shirt with no jacket, no tie, and you're saying I like the suit guy better, even if the other guy, as a point, I like the suit guy better.
So I think there was a slight misunderstanding. It's not just because she's polished. Remember how I gave the example of the sword, right? That you want someone who's a champion for your causes, right? And you want someone with the bigger, stronger sword who's better able to wield it. Now, in politics, polish is like the sword, right? And she's able to wield it for the causes that I like.
So if you put all of their Hillary's and Bernie's policies down on paper, you would check more boxes for Hillary policy-wise than Bernie.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Single-payer health care, you're against that.
It's a model that works in Europe, right? And how would we get it here in the U.S., right? We just saw the struggle that we had with Obamacare, which just fixed loopholes in things. How would we go from that to shifting to a single payer system? That's not realistic.
Right. So you're for the system.
Can get there in 10, 20 years? Yeah. But not today. There's not enough national consensus for that kind of thing. It's not realistic to push for that.
Yeah,
but then you end up nowhere.
Yeah,
this is actually there's a deeper issue here, right?
Okay.
If you look back at the healthcare debate, because you mentioned single payer healthcare, Bernie's been on the extremes of the debate, and he's been involved in it too, and so has Hillary. There's a famous someone's meeting minutes from a meeting that both Hillary and Bernie were at, where he had said like, "Oh no, why don't we just stand our ground on this position?" And her response to it was like, well, why don't we do something realistic that can be achieved? right? She's actually trying to move the ball forward, and he's just trying to stay in the same position, right?
Well,
that kind of realism also appeals to me.
But can't realism also be problematic in its own right? I mean, she in 2010, someone in the State Department made a change to passport applications to say, instead of mother and father, it said parent 1 and parent 2. And she sent a very snippy email saying, like, what the fuck? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but what the fuck? Don't do this. This is a terrible idea. And to a certain extent, she's right. Maybe Sarah Palin, and I think in her email she says Sarah Palin's going to jump down our throat about this. But, like, I do think that there's some value in saying, who gives a fuck what Sarah Palin thinks? Like, if you're too realistic, isn't that also a problem? Like, and it's not even like, because at a certain point you're not being realistic per se, as you are maintaining a status quo that maybe you could push beyond. So what would you say to that question?
Bernie will bring up the question of single payer. At least the question will now be a possibility in American politics. Right now no one speaks of it. It's not spoken of.
No, and it's great that Sanders is speaking about it, right? We need to have a debate about it, but we haven't had that debate, and we're not there yet. What the question was is, whether there's such a thing as being too realistic, so being too moderate, essentially, versus being, my challenge against Bernie was being too unrealistic, right? So yes, I mean there is a line. I think everyone has an opinion as to where that line is.
Yeah,
but I think she's, well past that line in that she is a moderate, but on the left, right? Mm-hmm. She's moving the ball further left, but she's the American left. That's right. In Europe, she might actually run, center right in some parties, in like France or Denmark, for example. Right. But in the U.S., she is moving the ball slightly left. Right? She's not trying to move it very far left. She's moving it from where it is in the middle, further left, right? And she's tremendously effective at it. So listen to the debates. She's a progressive, but she's a progressive who gets things done.
I have trouble.
And that's how you get things done.
Yeah, I have trouble imagining Republican Congress cooperating with Hillary Clinton more than they would with Bernie Sanders. I have a lot of trouble. There's half of this country. I mean, she has the worst disapproval ratings in the country. She has the worst trust ratings in the country, right up there tying with Donald Trump. And I mean, my parents hate the Clintons. There's a lot of people who hate the Clintons. So saying this argument that she will get more done in Congress, woof. Remember that memo the Republicans had about Obama that said obstruct everything he does for the next 4 years? That was their plan. What do you think it's going to be like they hate Hillary more than him?
On. Yeah. But I don't think that's fair because much like Obama got things done despite that. And I'm going to say something, and forgive my phrasing. I think Hillary can be a bigger bitch if she needs to be. And because she's more willing to meet in the middle, and I say that as somebody who I'm not sure really who I like more, but in terms of, because my joke for Sanders is always, it's going to be the first time they get to be obstructionist for reasons other than racism or sexism.
Well, he is Jewish.
But I don't even think they're willing to do the jog whistle. They love the Israelis, the Republicans.
That's right. Hillary's super PAC has now released an ad saying that Bernie Sanders is too old and that he'll die and he's not healthy. So she's, of course, going dirty. And I guess you would think...
that's a valid concern. I was worried about that for McCain's. Part of why I didn't like
Palin.
Among the many reasons.
Just have Elizabeth Sanders be your running mate. So good, he dies. Now Elizabeth Sanders is president. Even better.
Elizabeth
Warren?
Warren.
Yeah, because I was going to say, is Bernie...
Warren.
What's Bernie's wife's name? Yeah. I didn't know
Jane.
it offhand.
Yeah, my bad.
But, I don't think that's... I mean, and Barnaby, as the real Hillary supporter, can speak up to that, but I don't think that's... I really legitimately think that Sanders will get less accomplished. Whether the discussion is good, et cetera, there's a lot of different points you can make.
He's not a Democrat. You're right. I mean, he's not even a fucking Democrat.
Yeah,
so they're not
farther.
Yeah.
But I want to ask Barnaby, do you really think she's going to pull it farther left? Do you think she's farther left than Obama?
No. Obama ran to her left. You remember? And,
right. That's what I'm asking.
He did get a lot done. Despite the obstructionism that you guys mentioned. But she's, I voted for her over Obama as well because I liked her moderate position best. I was wrong then.
So,
He ended up winning.
just Barnaby, just out of curiosity, in California, how do the primaries work? Are you registered as a Democrat? Because that was a primary contest that you voted for her over Obama.
So I was in New York at that time.
Oh, well, sorry. I also don't know how New York works either, so it really doesn't change the question.
Is it an open primary or
Yes,
closed?
but in both New York and California, you have to be registered in the party that you're voting for.
Just curious.
Okay.
Sorry. That's
So
nosiness.
we're running out of time, Barnaby, but a couple more actual policies. So we did single payer. You showed a little doubt about that. You wanted it. You just don't think it's possible. So that's something.
I think it's a non-starter today.
Right. And
Maybe 10 years from now.
What about Citizens United and the Supreme Court decision that allows unlimited campaign donations by super PACs? So how do you feel about that?
Yes, so that's one of the rare ones where I would agree more with Bernie Sanders and with Donald Trump, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
how about
change?
How about corporate? How about legalization of marijuana? She's against it. He's for it on the federal level. How do you feel about that?
So hold on. No. She's not against it. She's for states experimenting with the legalization so that we learn from the democratic process. Now, in software, we have this thing called the agile process, where you kind of roll things out slowly, you learn from it, and then you bake your learnings into the final product, right? So when she says that her policy on marijuana is let some of the states try it, and then we'll see from there, that speaks to me, like as a software, because that's exactly how I want things like decisions to be made.
I like that too. I like Rand Paul's letting the states decide. The problem is when you have a federal law banning it on the books, and if you leave that federal law banning it, law enforcement can prosecute those states that legalize marijuana. They can prosecute people, and that's very dangerous. So Sanders can be for letting the states decide. He is. All he's saying is I'm taking it off the schedule. The ban. So I'm taking that federal ban away, then the states can decide. So doesn't that make sense?
I don't think that's what he's saying, from what I understood.
It is. He said he wants to take it off the controlled substances list on the federal level. That he can't. Bernie Sanders can't make laws about South Carolina's drug policies, and neither can the Congress, as far as I know. They don't even have the power to force states to legalize it unless they pass some amendment. So. Yeah,
but if you're saying, so then what would be the difference between their position? If they're both saying let the states, make it legal who want to, because the way it works here in California, right? The state legalized it if you have a medical permit,
right?
But it's still federally legal. So if you are on federal land, like on a park, so for example, all the beaches in San Francisco are a federal park, so if you smoke weed on there, the park rangers can arrest you and charge you with a federal crime.
The difference is...
Also the feds, anytime they want, if the president allows them, or maybe if Congress enacts the power or whatever.
No, they can do it on their own.
So the feds, but the president right now has told the feds to lay off.
Right.
But if he hadn't, and if he was... I'll get to this later, but so if the feds at any time want to go into California or Colorado or anywhere else and arrest anyone with marijuana, any of the dispensaries, any of that stuff, they can. And then it'll be a federal court case.
And by leaving that law on the books, Hillary would allow the next president to enforce those drug laws. The DEA,
like Chris Christie, if he wants to. And the only reason that Clinton is saying that now, saying that she wants to have the states have the right to do that, and we'll see how it pans out, blah, blah, blah. It's because she was forced to. It's because these states voted on it and said, no, we are going to have legal marijuana in our state. If none of those states had, she would not be saying any of that. She would be keeping with the no, marijuana should be illegal. It's a controlled substance and blah blah blah.
So you're saying she's keeping up the norm, right? The norm
she's keeping up the norm. And then the norm now is
she is.
Right. Go ahead.
But there is a good point to be made in this, right? If she upholds the norm, which is what Obama said, right? That is a very strong signal, right? That she wants to continue Obama's policy, right? She wants to be the continuation of Obama, right?
Right.
Yeah, except do you understand? Right, but so do you understand that minority rights can be trampled by the majority because of their opinion? Do you understand that? And that our rights are not granted because of a majority vote. Our rights are granted because they are inherent.
I think he understands that.
I failed to follow the
Well,
point.
all right, guys, we're at the 1 hour mark. So
If the
Wait, we're
whole
gonna come
U.S.
back. We're gonna come back.
decides
We're gonna come
that you have to buy bottled water, you cannot any longer drink tap water because it's for whatever reason. Do you think that should become law? And that if you drink tap water or any water that you do not purchase at a store, you should have to go to jail or suffer a penalty because that's what the majority voted for.
All right. So we're gonna end right here. This is exactly the 1 hour mark. We're gonna stop the thing. So thanks everyone for listening. Blah blah blah. This is the end of the show, and it was episode 45, and we're gonna hit you with episode 46 right now.